Hi, this is Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And what we're doing today is we're looking at the main mixing console, the live sound mixing console at the Ellis Performing Arts Center at the Latta High School, Middle School, High School Auditorium. And what I'd like to do today is to do a general overview of the audio sound mixer to give everybody an idea of what's happening. We won't get extremely technical. We're going to try to keep everything in a easy to understand layman's point of view. And in no particular order, I'm just going to walk you through the whole mixer to let you know what all is happening as far as goes. A mixer of this width actually has 32 channels. It's basically irrelevant how many channels we have. If we learn what one individual channel does, then we can have as many as we would like. But to give you a general overview of the sound system, the audio mixer here controls the level of microphones or instruments or anything that someone would plug in on stage, and it allows the operator to turn things up or down and change the tone or tonality of it. And it also allows us to send sound back to the stage in what we call monitor mixes. Now, as it stands, on stage at the Art Center, we have 4 monitor mixes. A monitor mix means that I could have a speaker back on stage, and if I were to be on stage with a microphone or a guitar or an instrument, then I could actually send sound back to those locations. They are controlled here, and we'll go back and talk about these a little in more detail. It says monitor 1, monitor 2, monitor 3, and monitor 4. If you go to the stage and you lift the lid of one of the black steel boxes on stage, you'll see labels accordingly that may say monitor 2, monitor 3, and monitor 4. Actually, monitor 1 are 2 permanently installed speakers on the left and right side behind the curtain. So if we had a choir or a small performance and we didn't want to bring any additional equipment out, we could always use monitor 1, and I'll give you a demonstration of that in a few minutes. I'm going to jump down to this part of the mixer, which is where the faders and sliders and the items that, like I said previously, we would turn an instrument up or down. And I have a label here on the board that says channel numbers match stage number 1 through 20. So from channels 1 through channel 20, those match identical the inputs on stage. When we go back to those black steel boxes again, lift the lid, they'll have a number. And if we, for example, would plug a microphone into microphone number 5 on stage, then we would come back and we would control it with number 5 on the audio mixer. These are all of the inputs. This is the master section, and this is our master volume. The master volume is this silver control knob here, and it usually runs between unity or the 0 or the U setting and -5. Usually -5 is a good point to start with. There are 8 wireless microphones in the sound system, and each microphone will have the capability of having either a handheld microphone or a lavalier belt pack, which is what I'm using now. I'm using one of the belt packs with this clip-on microphone, actually number 3. And we also have headset capabilities that we could use with either of the 1 through 8 wirelesses. We have playback listed here for our DVD player. We have a video system in here also. And then we have a CD player that plays music tracks that we'll use this as a demonstration also. Now, let's talk about just the general concept of the mixer. For example, the microphone that I'm currently speaking from is wireless number 3. So as we can see, I can turn this microphone down or turn this microphone up to a point where I start to get a little bit of ringing or feedback. So this is where I'm controlled. Above this level, there is a red button. There's a button that says mute. When I push this button, my microphone will go away. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm back on again. So at any time, I can go through and mute or turn off any specific channel. I have a variety of control for this channel, and the one thing to remember about this particular mixer is when I push this select button, any of the controls that go across the audio mixer I'm using only for that one channel. For example, if I wanted to change the tonality of my microphone that I'm speaking through now, if I wanted to make it bassier, more treble, or get rid of some ringing or feedback, then what I would do is I would select my microphone, turns blue, And now any controls that I do only relate to the microphone that I'm speaking on. Once I do that, I have the capability of turning on a noise gate. A noise gate just means when volume gets to a certain level, it shuts itself off. This is a compressor, which comes in very handy. If I have somebody who's really screaming or yelling into a microphone, it lets me limit, or it only gives it a certain limit of sound before it would go to distortion. So a compressor is a very nice thing to have. Then next we have the equalizer. On any standard mixer, if I were controlling this microphone, I would have bass, mid-range, and treble straight up and down the strip. This mixer's a little different. When I select the microphone that I'm speaking to on now, I can come over here to the highs and I can turn those on. I can turn the high mids on. I can turn the low mids, which we're on, and I can turn the lows, which is the bass, on. Now, speaking and controlling only this microphone, I can go to my low frequency control and I can boost or gain to the point where I'm sounding pretty bassy or in a bad position. And I can go through and I can adjust the tone control for lows, low mids, highs, and high mids. And I'm going to demonstrate that a little better by adding some crispness or some brightness to my voice. I'm going to select a 6K frequency, and then I'm going to bring the gain up, testing 1, 2, 3, almost to the point where you hear it going into a feedback mode. I'm going to bring that back down, and I'm going to bring that back down. And now I can come over here, and the best thing to do is just play with different tones. You hear how my voice sounds now, it's pretty nasty. And I can go through and I can correct that with just a slight tone adjustment. So the most important thing to keep in mind is when I select a channel and hit the blue button, then all of the controls relate only to that one specific channel. Another advantage of this mixer is when I select this particular channel, I have to tell my sound where to go to. In general, the sound goes directly to the main output. But if I notice here, I have sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, and sub 4, and they relate to sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, and sub 4. For example, when I turn this off, my sound will go away because you won't hear me anymore. And what I'm doing is I'm turning it out of the main sound system. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have no sound. Now I have sound back again. So when I select a particular channel, let's say I'm going to use wireless as 1, 2, and 3, and I'm currently speaking to you on 3, I have to tell this channel to go to my main output. I have to tell this channel to go to my main output. And then I have to tell the main channel, or the microphone that I'm speaking to you on now, to go to the main output. This comes in very handy if I would have a group or a performance in the theater where I may have 5 or 6 instruments and I may have 4 or 5 vocals. If I'd like to split those up. For example, the mixer is currently labeled for a program that they're doing, and it says choir is on 1, 2, and 3. If I select 1, I could send channel number 1 to subgroup 1, which is here. I could send the second choir microphone to subgroup 1, and then I could select a third choir microphone to subgroup 1. That means when I unmute these microphones, the volume for those microphones is going to be controlled by this slider right here, which is subgroup 1. Now, most important is I have to go to the select button on subgroup 1 and tell it to go to the main speaker system. The beauty of that is when my choir would sing and they finish their performance, I can either A, mute the channels and they go away, or I could come over here to subgroup 1 and I would have a master volume that works only for my choir microphones. Comes in handy when you have a lot of things going on at one time. To keep things very simple, I would always recommend that we assign every channel to the main output. At least you have sound immediately and you don't have to scramble to try to get something up and running. Now, I have a CD playing. Currently the CD player is plugged into channels 31 and 32, and I have some music playing. I'm going to unmute the channels because it's left and right, and I'm going to turn up this playback music. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the select button, and right now it is going to the main output. But if I turn this off, my music disappears because my music's still playing and there's still sound happening in this channel, but I did not assign it to the main output to go out to our speaker system. So when I push this button again, then my music plays through the main sound system. Now, let's cover, we're going to go up into the top of the mixer and see if we can go through a few things. The blue row of knobs right across the top are called gain controls. And they act as a gate meaning that the more the gain control is turned up on a clock face, then the more sound actually comes into the channel. I think I'm going to turn the music up very slightly, but you notice if I come up here to the gain control, I get considerable increase in sound. Gain control can get you in trouble, so you have to be very careful with it. It doesn't necessarily have to go to the gain control and make adjustments on it. They generally should be at a pretty good position where we don't have to do any level controls on the gains. But there again, this is our music playing in channels 31 and 32. Now, I'm going to mute this for just a second, and I'm going to talk about this little switch right underneath. This says 48V, and it actually has a light lit underneath it. 48V means 48 volt phantom power. Phantom power is what is used. We have a variety of microphones in the system, particularly these nice choir microphones, and the choir microphones require phantom power. So if we find that we should ever plug a microphone into one of our plates on stage and we do not get any audio or any sound of it, we need to make sure that we have the 48 volt phantom power turned on for that particular channel. 48 volt is always needed should we use one of the little, what they call condenser microphones, one of the choir microphones or maybe one of the piano microphones. Yeah. So if we should ever plug a microphone in on stage and don't get any sound at all, let's make sure if it's a condenser microphone, and most of what you have are, that the 48 volt light is turned on. It would be best if we did not turn on 48 volt on any channels that we're not using, because what that does is that supplies a fair amount of power into the channel that we may not need. The cool thing about the choir mics that we put in this project is that once you hit the switch turning the 48 volt phantom power on, there's actually a red indicator on the choir microphone itself to let you know that it's powered and that it's running. Now, let's go back and just refresh about the equalizer. I'm gonna open up my music. This is my music playing, and that sounds fine. But let's just say that somebody brought me a CD that didn't quite have the quality I was looking for, and I wanted to increase the treble or the bass or enhance it slightly. By selecting this channel, I can come over here and I can turn on the high equalizer, the high mid, the lows, and the lows. And what that's really doing is just opening up the equalizer so I could address it and change it however I'd like to. With that, now I can make it crisper, darker sounding, brighter. I can make it have more mid-range, which sometimes can help bring out the vocals. I can have kind of a low frequency or kind of a muddy sound. Or I can come over here and I can add some of the bass response to it. That allows me to go through each individual channel, not necessarily music that or piano or a guitar or a keyboard, and I can adjust it according to my taste from the equalizer. Now, jumping from the equalizer up to the monitor mixes, because this is where a lot of people, this is where we get in trouble when we have a large group up on stage and we're trying to provide sound. Again, to refresh, a monitor mix means that if someone's standing on stage with a microphone and they may want to sing, they may be singing with this soundtrack. Well, this music right now plays through the house speakers that take care of the normal seated, the seated area. But if I'm standing, or if anybody's standing up on stage, they need to hear some of this music so that they are able to cue from it and stay on key and sing the song in a proper manner. We have 4 monitor mixes on stage: monitor mix 1, monitor mix 2, 3, and 4. Like I said before, monitor mix 1 is permanent. There are 2 permanent speakers mounted on the left and right side of the stage behind the curtain, so we can always send sound through monitor 1. Monitors 2, 3, and 4 are scattered across the stage in the small black recessed boxes. And when we lift the lid of that box, it'll tell you what microphone you're on, and it will also tell us what monitor mix. Monitor in this term meaning a sound board or a sound speaker. There's no control assigned from this mixer in auxiliary 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. All of these are future growth. Or let's say that I needed to send sound out to a computer or some other location or a recorder, then I can independently have sound going out of these outputs to some other devices. Right now we don't have that need, but in the future we could. Auxiliary 14th is pretty important because this controls our subwoofers. When we're talking about the main sound system, we have speakers left and right that take care of the main seating area, and then we also have two 18-inch subwoofers built into the sides of the stage. The reason we would like to control our subwoofers independently is that some things we would like to go through the subwoofers. For example, if we're watching a DVD or watching a movie, if we're listening to music, or if we have a drum set up on stage and we would like to have the lower frequencies or the kick of a kick drum or a bass guitar or something just to kind of fatten up the room a little bit. That's what subwoofers do. But we also want to be very careful about using them for items of which I'm speaking to you now, which is through a lavalier microphone. If I try to put a lavalier microphone through subwoofers, then I'm going to get some roaring and feedback. So the reason we have this control is we can independently select what and how much goes to each location. For example, let's start with, let's go back to our music. Here's my music playing. And I'm going to turn this down because it may be low on the recording, but I'm going to turn this down real low. And I'm going to say, if I have a choir on stage and they would like to hear this music to sing by, I know monitor 1 is what I need to do with it. So for example, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select, I'm going to push select, and then I'm going to push mix. Mix tells me what is going through monitor 1 on stage. So right now I have none of channel 1, none of 2. I have no sound going to any location to my monitors on stage. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to send the CD player that I'm listening to in the house onto the stage. So select, mix, and then I come over here to what I would like to come through my monitors. And it may be difficult to hear here, but we've just increased the sound of the CD player only through monitor mix 1, which are the speakers on stage. Here, what I'll do is I'll pull the house down. This is no sound happening in the house, that's only on monitor 1. So I can come over here and increase or decrease anything going to monitor mix 1. Now I can turn it back up. Now we're listening to it in the house system too. Now, let's say that I'm out here speaking like I am now on wireless microphone number 3, and I can hit select. This is me talking because I'm going to mute it. Now I'm back on again. I can select my microphone. I can go through the tone control and make it shape however I would like for it to sound. But I may be given a narrative, and I have people backstage who need to hear what I'm speaking about. If that's the case, I can come over here and I can hit select, mix, monitor 1, and now I can come over here to my microphone and increase my microphone going up to the monitors on stage. Hey, check 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to turn this down so I should be able to hear it. Check 2, 3, 4, 5. You can actually hear it on stage. And this is a master control, so I'm going to turn my microphone back up again to where it was, and I can do that. Looking at the board that they have here, monitor 1, if I wanted to add banjo, then I could come over here and I could increase the banjo. This says guitar, I could increase a little bit of the guitar, I could increase a little bit of the bass, and set whatever levels the performers need on stage. A caution about monitor mixes is that everybody does not necessarily have to hear everything. The purpose of a monitor mix is just for you to have if the performers on stage to have a reference so that they may hear the music that they're singing with, but they don't necessarily have to hear the microphones. It will be difficult and almost impossible to take the choir microphones, which are amplifying the performers on stage out into the audience, and turn them back up through the monitors, because the first thing that's going to happen when we try to bring those microphones in is we're going to have some type of a feedback or squealing, most likely. Now, if I had a group on stage, maybe with a drummer or a keyboard player, and that we took one of the floor monitors that we have here and we plugged it into monitor 2, what we would do is we would come over here, we would hit select, mix, and now this tells us what is currently going through monitor 2, which is nothing at this time. Same thing with monitor 3. Monitor 3 right now we have a little bit of the choir microphones, and we have a little bit of this choir microphone going through monitor 3. Monitor 4, we have a whole lot of choir microphones 1 and 2, and a whole lot of this choir microphone here, and channel 25 and 26, which is piano and vocal. So you see the importance of monitor mixes is we can go through and we can have a completely independent control for monitor 1, 2, 3, 4, and our house controlled system out here. Okay, that's a general overview of the audio mixer, so that may give us a little bit of a heads up. Yes, there are, oh, I'm sorry, let me cover the subwoofers first. The last thing to cover the subwoofers. There's a mute button. The auxiliary 14 is the subwoofers, and I currently have it muted. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play our music, and in the same way that we would do our monitor controls, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select, this is auxiliary 14, I'm going to hit select, mix, excuse me, and right now I have this much of my CD player playing through the subwoofers. I just turned everything off. Turn my music up. Now we should be able to hear more low frequency control, which is more bass response is really what it is. Now I don't think I would want to take my vocal mic and put it through the subwoofers, because usually what I'll get is some kind of a roar or feedback. Now the cool thing about the subwoofers is that when I turn my music down, I'll have to get to a point where I can just mute them and I can pull my music back down. But that's the general overview of monitors 1, 2, 3, 4 subwoofers, and that gives us a rundown of the mixer.